So, you've got yourself an email list. What should you do next? Getting an email list is simply not enough. You need to know what to do with it once you have it and how to structure things correctly so that A, you can continue growing your email list, but more importantly, so you can nurture that email list and get sales for your business from it. So in this video, I'm going to share with you 8 simple steps that if you follow them start to finish and you adopt them into your business, you will have success with emails and your business. And later in the video, I'm also going to be sharing tips that you can also take away to make sure you don't make a mess of any of the 8 steps I'm about to share. So before we get into the 8 steps, let me just explain what we're talking about when it comes to an email list. So an email list is what it sounds like. It is a list of email addresses, but it is a list that you will have gathered by telling someone that you will offer them some value now or in the future in exchange for them giving you their email address. And you can use examples of retail websites for this, where when you visit them, they will immediately offer you 10 or 20% off your first order if you sign up to their email newsletter. But of course, what the companies then need to do is send you emails and market to you in order to get the return on that investment. And the same applies for your business. So if you've got an email list, it means you're ready to take casual viewers to the next level and you want to have personalized conversations with them, and hopefully they will convert into sales when you actually send that information to them. So with all of that in mind, and with the power of email marketing in our hands, let's now start to look at these different steps. So step 1 is about defining your content avatars. Now we've talked previously about avatars for your business, like who is your perfect customer, what problems do they have. This isn't exactly the same thing. It's just that when you're marketing emails, you tend to be trying to drive someone to a very specific product or service that you offer. And so you need to make sure that the avatar on the email side matches what it is that you want to propose to them in the future. It could be that your whole business is around physiotherapy, but the reality is somebody might have signed up to your program because they learned about back pain and want a potential personalized or special product about back pain. Therefore, if I was creating an avatar here, I'd be creating something around someone who has back problems, and I'd be creating a whole persona about the kind of problems that they have, what problems do we need to solve for them, because that avatar information is going to play nicely later on when it comes to constructing the emails that you want to send to them. Now, if you have multiple avatars, you may want to group your emails differently. Perhaps if you've got some users coming for back pain and maybe another set of users that are coming for problems with their legs. Now, once you've laid out those avatars, you can actually move on to step 2. And step 2 is to define the customer journey for that avatar. As an example here, if I'm a person who's got back pain and I'm looking for a personalized solution, you need to understand, well, what is it that my journey would look like? Now, a flowchart is a really good way of doing this. So you have to think about, where are they coming in? Maybe they watch a piece of your content, then they sign up to your email list, which is about back pain and the fact that you can offer them some solution to it. Do you want to give them a taster first and then ask them to sign up for the bigger program? And that workflow is going to be super important because it's going to tell you all of the key touch points in your business where that customer might engage with emails and therefore might buy a product or service from you. So on to step 3, we need to define the types of email that you're going to be sending. Now, there are plenty of different ways to send emails, and the creativity element here is totally endless. But typically, you'll have a few types of emails. You'll have value emails, which give someone high-level information and will give true value immediately, and there's no expectation or request from the user to do anything. You're just helping them with their problems that they signed up for. Secondly, you may do story-based content where you share an experience that you recently had or an experience with one of your other customers or clients to give any prospects a comfort factor in knowing that you can actually solve other people's problems, just to warm them up to the idea that you also might be able to solve their problems. This can also tie nicely into case studies. So if you have good case studies or customers that you've worked with who are willing to actually share their experiences with your business or your offerings, that will act as a massive sales collateral to get you extra sales through the door. You could also create content that specifically calls out other pieces of content that you have, like targeting people to a masterclass or a video that you've created, or maybe a private video that no one else has access to. Only the people on your email list have it. So you should define some of those types and think about creating some template structures for them so that when you come to create them in the future, you know the type of email you're creating and then you know roughly what kind of structure you should follow. Now, moving on to step 4, you need to start thinking about the content delivery delivery flow. Now, this is primarily going to be about how many emails you actually create, how many emails you want to actually send to a person, how often you want to send those emails. So are you looking to do this daily for 30 days? Or are you looking to do something every 2 days? Are you looking to have sales ones stuck in there as well as value ones, as well as case study ones? That content delivery flow is super important. So if you're doing an automated schedule and you're trying to queue things up in advance, you also need to think about how you would sprinkle in some random emails that you might come up with in your spare time that you think are important to get to the user more urgently than something in your automation pipeline. So really, this is just understanding about how the sequence would go, what day you send each email on, what kind of email you're sending on that day, and having that set up in template form later so that you can just rinse and repeat that. So it's time to move on to step number 5 now. And step number 5 is probably the most important and also the most time consuming, because we now need to start writing our content in advance. Rather than just crafting an email the night before and sending it the morning after and just having this kind of constant battle of trying to time all of this stuff and fitting it into your busy schedule, because remember, you're going to be growing a business, so doing the emails is just one part of it. So having content pre-built is going to be super valuable for you, because when you have times of busyness, you can rely on your automation tool to take over and take some of the stress off you so that you're still providing prospective customers value, but you don't need to be physically there typing emails every 5 minutes, wondering, oh crap, I need to get an email out by tomorrow. You don't have to worry about that because you'll have already done it. The challenge, of course, is having to do all of this up front, but it is worth doing. I would suggest to start with about 15 to 30 emails that you can pre-set up. And ideally, you would have multiple emails of different types, as we talked about in one of the earlier steps. And I'll share some tips on writing the emails at the end of this video. Now, step 6 is where we can now take our pre-written content and we can start to program this into some sequencing tools. For example, tools like Aweber have the ability to take an email list and then start pushing different emails out in sequence to people on a daily or any other time basis that you require. This is essentially setting up the workflow of emails that you described in one of the earlier steps, because now you'll be able to say, okay, I need the value email to go out on day 1. And this is the email that it should send. And then the second day, I want it to send a different email. Maybe it's a case study, so you program that next. And then the third day, maybe you'll send a sales email. And then the fourth day, the fifth day, or you could do it once per week. It really depends on how aggressive and fast that you want to go after sales. I'll also cover a tip on this later, so don't miss that, because if you get this wrong, you could end up alienating people on your email list. So step 7 is the point of no return, really, because this is when you're going to turn on your workflows, begin that process working, and you're going to start to monitor how the emails are performing. So in tools like Aweber or MailChimp or other tools, there are capabilities built in which will allow you to monitor which emails have been opened, which emails have been interacted with, deleted immediately, all this kind of stuff. And that's the power of these tools. So you'll be able to get an idea of what emails are working, what aren't working. You'll also be able to tell if some emails were the reason that someone might have unsubscribed. And so the goal really at step 7 is not just turning it on, but just constantly monitoring what is going on with it. Is it working, and do you need to tweak it? Now, there are some things that you should consider here. One of them is don't tweak too often. It might sound obvious, but if you keep tweaking something too often, you'll never know whether something is just taking time to bed in or whether it's working. So you need to allocate yourself a reasonable amount of time to see whether results are actually working for you or not. Now, we're on to the final step and we're nearly there. The final step is actually really simple, but is something that most people get completely wrong, because they think once they've done all the other steps and they've set up their automations, they're good. They don't have to do anything else. Wrong. You have to keep innovating. If you don't innovate and you don't come up with new ideas for emails and you just keep doing the same thing forever and ever, but you'll never be able to truly maximize sales. For example, what you'll find from content creators is that as they start creating content, their content will get better over time and they add value to it. You should also be doing this for your emails, and you should also be looking at what hooks work, what things don't work, what might have caused someone to click on a link or not, or delete an email or not, and optimizing that in your workflow, changing the sequence of emails and the content of those emails as often as needed. And remember, don't do it too often, and just keeping on top of that stuff and keeping to come up with new ideas. And of course, as soon as you get new ideas, write them down, even get the baselines down so you don't forget them, and then draft an email out when you get time, and you can add it to a list of things that you could choose to schedule on a semi-periodical basis once once you've got past your initial set of sequences. And if you do all of those things, you've essentially set up email in the correct way for your business, and you should be able to drive sales from it. And you should have a constant feedback loop of knowing what does work and what doesn't work. Now, there are some bonus tips that I've promised I would share throughout the video, so I'm going to share them now. And some of them might seem obvious, but you'd be surprised at how many people mess these things up. So the first tip is not to complicate things. If your workflow is simple to start with because you have one product, keep the whole workflow simple. Don't try and design the world and think, okay, I'm going to have 15 products in the future, because you will never actually get to selling any of them because you'll spend too long on the automation. And actually, you're not then taking on any feedback of what your current workflow is doing and how it's performing in order to better it for when you launch your new products in the future. So the second tip is on emails specifically, and that is please be concise when you write them. Do not use pointless waffle. Don't try and fill them in and make them long because you feel like they have to be a certain length. Get to the value and the point. Put the hooks in there as needed to keep people engaged and reading all the way to the end in case there's a call to action. But generally, focus in your words. A good way to check whether you've got quality of writing is to use platforms like X, where people post very concisely because it's the only way you get engagement on X as a platform. And if you have a look at some very popular threads and have a look at how they're written, that will give you an idea of how you could translate that style into your email. You can obviously add flair and things to your emails to make them quite personal and to share your personality through email. But it's important that you don't make it kind of silly and not really focused on a sale, because then you just become an entertainer and not a business person. Tip number 3 is to think about storytelling. We know with video that storytelling really works. Actually, storytelling works very well in written posts as well. This occurs on LinkedIn, on X, and any post-based platform. You should also do this in email. If you can tell a story, someone will engage more than if it's just information. Tip 4 is to avoid sending emails too fast. If you're planning on sending 4 or 5 emails a day, you can consider some people will just leave your email list very quickly because that is too much. It's called spam, and trying to get the sale just by driving emails in volume will not work. You need to make sure that your persona and your cadence of sending emails reflects your business and your personality and how you want to portray your business. If it feels rushed and it feels like you're forcing a sale, people will detect that quite quickly. People know when you're trying to be desperate and force them into a sale, and they will unsubscribe from your email list and probably from your content as well. And tip number 5 is to make your emails focused. Now, the important thing here is that if you've got nothing to say, don't say it. Don't send an email just to say, oh, I'm just filling in the day right now because I need to send an email because I promised I would. Don't do that. Make sure that you set up a cadence that works for how much content you can create. If you can only draft 1 email a week, then you should be sending a maximum of 1 email per week. You shouldn't be trying to fill, oh, if I send 2 a week, though, I'll get more engagement. It doesn't work like that. People only engage if there's value to be had on the emails. And tip number 6 is the final tip I've got. You should potentially look at email autoresponders or social media autoresponders to help automate some of the workflow and get additional clicks to sign up to your email list. Now, you can do this using tools like ManyChat, and they're not sponsored in this video. It's just a tool that I've seen used before, and it is quite powerful because you can program an automated direct message conversation with someone based on a prompt that they might type. You might put one of your posts, DM me the word guide, and I will send you a free guide and sign you up to the email list so you get value forever. And somebody types guide in a DM to you, then the tool will actually kick in and it will have a conversation with the person, take them through the necessary steps to get signed up without you having to even be involved with the person directly. If you followed all of these steps and tips, then you'll be able to implement emails really well in your business and use any email lists that you have already. But if you're not sure why email is actually really, really important and the powers that it can offer you in your business in growing it, I'd suggest that you watch the video that's on screen as I explain why email is super important for growing your business. So if you click on that video next, I'll see you over there.